In trying times like these, it can be helpful to remember moments in history where Canadians united to fight a common enemy. This year marks the 75th anniversary of the end of the Second World War and the Battle of the Atlantic. Fern Blodgett Sunde, like so many Canadians, was determined to fight for her country. Like all dangers of the war, veterans were tested by their personal limits. But for the women among them, it tested the convention of the time, the belief that men were only capable of doing what they could too. Here is the story of the first woman wireless radio operator to serve the deep sea. By 1939, the Battle of the Atlantic was a fierce power struggle between the Allied and Axis powers, all for control of vital sea routes carrying supplies and personnel from eastern Canada to Britain. It was the longest continuous campaign of World War II. After 2 years of successful voyages, the Royal Navy sent the Norwegian shipping mission a secret note of appreciation. The letter praised the ship's radio operators for the exemplary manner in which they followed route instructions designed to keep the ships out of German danger. Fern Blodgett, a young Canadian, was in fact one of the operators being praised.
Even if her story had ended with being the very first Canadian professional female wireless radio operator and overcoming all kinds of odds and breaking down the barriers that stood in the way of women who were trying to pursue non-traditional careers, that would have been significant in and of itself. But within the context of the Second World War, being so brave and courageous and determined and persistent, and as she said herself, her life was no different from the men's lives who were enlisting to fight, and so she wanted to do her part, and she did.
Fern Blodgett was born on July 6, 1918, and grew up in Cobourg, Ontario. She admired the ships and Great Lakes steamers that passed by the shores of Lake Ontario. Fern dreamt of a career at sea, although knowing that naval adventures were reserved for boys. During the outbreak of World War II, wireless radio operators, or sparks, were urgently needed to send and decode messages on board Allied merchant vessels. 2 radio schools turned her down, but Fern persisted and became the first Canadian woman to earn a second-class wireless operator's certificate. On June 13, 1941, Fern graduated and answered an urgent call that would forever change her life. Gurner Sunde, a Norwegian captain of the MS Mosedale, desperately needed a radio operator in order to leave port in Montreal. Captain Sunde was shocked to see that his applicant was a woman. Neither Canada nor Britain permitted women to work aboard their ships. Luckily, Norway had no rule against it, and Fern stepped right on board.
Communications in the 40s during the war, there was very little voice. It was all to do with Morse code, and it was encrypted as well. And so we might send out a word like, snow, S-N-O-W, but that might be jumbled up. It might not mean snow because of our encryption system during the war. But she was able to listen to Morse code from the German submarines, which is our prime reason for being there, and decode that and get it off to one of the signal ships not far away.
Despite seasickness and the grim events of the Atlantic, Fern stayed at her post, carrying out duties bravely during 78 Atlantic crossings. The Mosedale would make 96 transatlantic voyages, more than any other Allied ship.
She made many trips across the Atlantic and never was torpedoed, which I think is amazing. But she was a woman of foresight, and she really believed in what she did, and she worked for it, and she did it. And she has helped women today because of that.
She was a unique person in the Second World War, and in addition to this, she was from Cobourg. She was one of us, a young girl who made a career, a fantastic career, a unique career in the Second World War. She served her country. She had an extraordinary courage, and this is very, very important that today the youth remembers this and realize that everything is possible with perseverance and courage, and they have to serve their country, and they have to do whatever they can in order to defend democracy and liberty.
A year later, after joining the Mosedale's crew, Fern married Captain Sunde during a brief stop in St. John's, New Brunswick. After all, life at sea was unforgivable. Later on, they would settle in Farsund, Norway, and have 2 children. Their wartime efforts were recognized in July 1943 when King Haakon of Norway presented them both with the Norwegian War Medal. Fern, the Canadian Sparks, was the first woman to receive that honor. Fern's remarkable journey became an unexpected beacon leading to a sisterhood of sparks at sea.
I think that when people have individuals who inspire them, when they see people in history that represent them, that look like them, if you like, then they can be inspired also. And in this day and age when we are really looking toward diversity and finding heroes that people can look up to, that to have Fern as one of our heroes, I think is very significant.
Fern's statue will symbolize her determination and the courage of all veterans who served in the Battle of the Atlantic. As a trailblazer for her time, Fern will continue to make waves as an inspiration for generations to come. Graham Beer, Cobourg Media.